In late September, I spent 5 days camping at the Mule Lake campground. I started the trip focused on getting content for my website, like documenting the hiking trails and some of the other campgrounds. What I wasn't expecting, though, was for the trip to turn into a wildlife wonderland. I went searching for wildlife, and boy was I in luck. I saw ducks and birds, snake, a scary spider, beavers, muskrat, squirrels, grouse, otter, a wolf, deer, and of course, moose. Lots and lots of moose. No matter how many times I see a moose, it's always an exciting experience. I guess what I'm trying to say is, this was one very exciting trip. The wildlife wonderland started during my drive into the park. 3 deer crossed the road in front of my car, one at a time, while I was on the highway. When the first deer jumped across the road, I was like, oh cool, a deer. Then the second one jumped and I was like, okay, that was pretty close. And then the third deer jumped across and it was actually quite scary. I didn't get it on camera, but you'll have to take my word that it actually happened. The first thing that I did when I got to the park, before even going to my campsite, was do a few hikes. I was working on a new project for my website, documenting all of the hiking trails. I started with the Whiskey Rapid Trail. It's a short trail that feels like a long portage. About midway through, I had a cool encounter with an otter. Well, cool for me at least. He kept grunting at me. Maybe he didn't think it was cool. Stay. You're a good girl. Let's go. Good girl, Lila. Good girl. Let's go. Good girl. Oh, good girl. My next stop was the Peck Lake Trail. I had done this trail before, but not with my extravagant multi-camera setup. It's a pretty easy trail that offers lots of beautiful views. I also saw a grouse on the trail, increasing my wildlife tally for the day. After finishing the Whiskey Rapids and Peck Lake trails, I finally went to my campsite at Mule Lake to get set up. Ground sheet, my sleeping pad. I have this open sleeping bag just to sleep on comfortably. Pillow, and then I just have to put our sleeping bags down, and then that's it. So this is my campsite. As you can tell, I take up a lot of space. Got my car, my tent, I got Elo, and I got a chair. Someone is tired of being tied up. What do you think you're doing, silly girl? Elo, you're gonna hurt yourself. You're a good girl, Elo. My daily step count was already pretty high after the 2 morning hikes, but I decided to go for a long walk around the campground, and then I finished the day with one final hike, the 2 Rivers Trail. Alright, Elo, let's go to this lookout. Let's see what this lookout is all about. It's not the most impressive view. For fall colors and for expansive views, this isn't the trail, but it is still pretty nonetheless. You having fun, Elo? Okay, so there's another lookout, and this one gives a tiny bit better view. My day ended with a quiet, relaxing evening at my campsite. I mostly saw small wildlife during my first day, but don't worry, because I had some pretty exciting encounters during the rest of my trip. Day 2 began with yet another hike, the Lookout Trail. It was a pretty busy weekend in the park, so I wanted to visit the trail in the early morning while it was still relatively quiet. It's around 9 o'clock, 9:15-ish. Failed attempt at finding wildlife this morning. A real failed attempt. I was 30 seconds late to seeing a bull moose twice within 10 minutes in the same spot. I had 2 different groups of photographers tell me. The first time I took Elo to pee like 100 meters up the road, and then when I got to the spot they told me I was 30 seconds late. Thanks, Elo. I still love you. And then I went to pee and I came back 5-10 minutes later and new photographers told me I was 30 seconds late in the exact same spot. So real bad luck this morning on the wildlife front. But for now I'm going to get back to the hike. When I arrived to the lookout, the view was blocked by the morning fog. But I stuck around for 30 minutes and waited for it to clear. It was a fun experience watching the view slowly reveal itself from the fog-ridden sky. I've hiked this trail many times before, and it's always a pleasure. It's not necessarily the best lookout for fall colors specifically, but you still get a pretty decent display in certain areas. After a quick nap in the tent with Elo, I went for my evening wildlife search, specifically with hopes of finding moose. And finally, I was successful. There was a cow and calf in the distance feeding at the shoreline, and I was told from one of the other photographers that a bull moose was also present, but he was hiding in the bush. The moose, not the photographer. He didn't stay hiding for long though. All three moose walked through the bush towards where we were standing. We were able to get some pretty great photos and videos while still keeping a safe and respectful distance. I stayed in the same spot for 2 hours watching all three of the moose. I was tired, it was chilly, but there were 3 moose chilling in front of me. I wasn't going anywhere. Eventually, the 3 moose settled down for the evening. It was actually kind of fun watching the bull moose literally doze off to sleep in front of me. It's the morning of day 3. It's a cold one. Someone's got a bit of energy. Do you think she knows that we're going to see the moose again and she's excited? Good girl. I knew where the moose had settled down for the evening, so I was hoping they would still be there the next morning. I was ready for round 2. I arrived to the same spot at 7:30 a.m. While waiting for the moose to show their beautiful faces, I saw a figure appear in the middle of the road. It was far away in the opposite direction and it was backlit by the early rising sun. I actually thought it was a moose at first, but then I realized it was a deer. It was frozen in the middle of the road, staring at me. I was able to capture an amazing backlit silhouette photo. It looked like a black and white photo, but it was really just an illusion from the early morning light. I've actually never gotten a decent photo of a deer before, and I could not have been happier with how this photo turned out. It almost looked like a Disney movie poster. I continued to wait, and eventually the moose did show up. All 3 of them. Without going into a minute-by-minute breakdown, basically I was in the same spot for more than 4 hours. The moose were hanging at the shoreline in a shaded, small bay. At times, they walked into the sunshine, and the photo opportunities were pretty great, and at other times, the shade made the scenery a little bit less desirable for photographing. Hold on. I can't believe I actually just said the words less desirable when talking about a multi-hour moose session. The whole thing was very desirable, believe me, and I was very lucky to be there. Elo stayed completely silent the entire time, watching the moose with just as much excitement as I had. Eventually, the moose went inland with no signs of returning, so that's when I headed out. I spent a lot of time earlier in the trip doing hikes, but there was another project that I was working on for my website. I was documenting the campgrounds with 360-degree videos. I was going through each campground, the general areas, as well as each individual campsite. It was a lot of walking. It might not look that tiring since I'm only giving it like 10 seconds of real estate in this video, but believe me, it was so damn tiring. For day 3 I was working on the Kearney Lake campground, but I only made it halfway through the campground before I gave up from exhaustion. Afterwards, I went back to my campsite, got a fire going, made myself dinner, and enjoyed a beautiful night under the stars. The morning of day 4 started with quite the surprise. I woke up early to go back to the same moose spot, but I was not expecting this to happen. A wolf walked right in front of my car in the middle of the highway. Did show up again on day 4, but only for a very brief moment to cross the road. I was busy talking with one of the other photographers, and we were only like 20 feet behind everyone else, but the moose encounter happened so quickly, and those few extra seconds was enough time for the two of us to miss the shot. Ironically, it was the two of us that saw the wolf earlier in the morning, and then we were the only two that missed the moose photos. I guess the wildlife scales were balanced that day. We did a quick human photo shoot to pass the time, and I love how these photos of me and Elo turned out. Big thanks to Chris and Jamie for capturing these moments. Hey, wait, this isn't Algonquin. But don't skip, this isn't an ad. Well, kind of. I just want to take 20 seconds to tell you that if you're planning a trip to Algonquin Park, you have to check out my website, Algonquin and Beyond. There are more than 50 extremely detailed trip reports, along with super helpful resources like this complete guide to renting canoes, or this article with everything you need to know about bears in the park. Become a member and get access to more than 750 backcountry campsite reports, along with 360-degree video tours of every campground, including individual campsites. Plus, members get an automatic 10% discount at the online shop, where you can grab some sweet merch and framed photo prints. Alright, now let's get back to the video. I went back to the Kearney Lake campground to finish the job that I started the day prior. I also visited the Tea Lake campground and the Raccoon Lake campground. I had the same task for each campground that I visited. Walk around and take 360-degree videos of the entire campground along with each individual campsite. Like I said before, it was a lot of walking. I was averaging more than 20,000 steps each day of this trip, and my feet were definitely feeling it. I was so tired by the end of the day, so I went back to my campsite to relax for a few hours. At least, that's what I intended to do. I was driving back to my campground when I saw a few cars pulled over. There was the moose at the side of the road, happily feeding in the bushes. There were a number of people watching, and the crowd was growing larger. Kept walking further down the road until it came to a parking area, and then finally, the moose crossed one of the main paths into a separate area of bush. She was out of sight, so the large group of people dispersed, thinking the encounter was over. I knew it wasn't over quite yet. I took a side trail in the direction the moose headed and saw her in the distance. She was standing in the bushes, once again feeding peacefully with no one around. I got to spend more time watching the moose, silently, from a safe distance. When she was done feeding, she crossed one final trail and went into the bushes, where she found her resting spot for the evening. That's when I was able to capture one of my favorite moose photos I've ever taken. I think it might even look more like a Disney movie poster than the deer photo from earlier. After a quick dinner, I enjoyed the final hours of sunlight at the Mew Lake airfield. I saw some fresh tracks on the ground, but I didn't have any sightings. But it was still an absolutely gorgeous landscape while the sun was setting. It was the perfect temperature outside, and the sky was just beautiful. I couldn't have asked for a more peaceful evening. On my final day of the trip, I went back to the same moose hotspot. This time, they didn't show. But, as a consolation prize, I got to watch a busy beaver doing some renovations. The price of lumber is crazy these days, so sometimes you just have to take matters into your own hands. You're such a good girl. After a quick nap in the tent with Elo, I packed up camp and went searching for wildlife. One last time for the trip. I didn't see any big wildlife, but I did see some birds, a snake, and a scary looking spider. If you don't like snakes or spiders, you may want to close your eyes for the next 20 seconds. But don't worry, I'll tell you when it's over. Okay, the scary stuff is over. You can open your eyes again. And that was it. The wildlife wonderland had finally come to an end. The highlight of the trip was definitely spending back-to-back days watching the family of moose as they fed at the shoreline, swam in the water, slept in the bushes, and just lived their happy moose lives. Plus, the deer encounters, the wolf on the highway, the otter, beaver, snake, grouse, and more. It was a pretty crazy trip for wildlife. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like, comment, or share. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you want to read the full written trip report for this video, I'll leave a link in the video description below.